the reigning, defending.
So we got AJ here on a Talksport interview discussing his potential next fight dates and potential next fight opponents depending on what happens on this Matchroom 5v5 card on June 1st, which I spoke about on the podcast with Frumi a couple of days ago. Unanimous decision on Apple and Spotify if you'd like to listen to that in full, but I'll let the man speak himself.
Anthony Joshua, we're here in Monaco, taking in the Formula E E-Prix. What have you made of the racing so far? I know you've been in the garages.
Yes, I've been in the garages, been 10-10. I take a lot of inspiration from the Formula 1, Formula E aspect of how they operate the garage and all the teamwork that goes on in order to get their times from 1 second to 0.999 seconds. It's amazing. And the racing is really good, actually. Cars are fast, the takeoff's fast. Once you learn about the cars and what they do, you tend to enjoy it more. So I listened a lot and I sat back and I can see what's going on.
I've always liked AJ for that. He has this way with words that other boxers don't tend to have. I'm not sure whether he had a different schooling upbringing to other people or whether he continuously studies, but he's quite eloquent. And reminds me, as much as they don't get along, reminds me a fair bit of Lennox Lewis in the way that they speak. And he can constantly make these analogies back to boxing. And it, doesn't just seem like he's saying things for the sake of saying things. You can actually understand the point that he's making and relating it back to what he does and sort of analyzing different people at the top of their game and being like, okay, how can I take that mentality or that technique or these routines or exactly like he's talking about in the garage of a Formula 1 car and relate it back to what he does. So it's interesting that he's seems so laid back, but he's also constantly analysing things like that. Anyway, continue here.
Perfect, and what a great location to be watching a race. You could have come to London, but you came to Monaco.
Yeah, forget London. Let's enjoy Monaco.
We've got to talk about boxing.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've come off the back of a very strong performance, and I believe we've got a date set for later this year and also 3 names in the frame for your next fight.
Yeah, so some date between September the 20th to September the 25th, for example, any time in between there. But listen, whenever they tell me there's a date, I'll be ready, 100%.
Okay, and it's going to be in London?
That's word on the streets. It's going to be in London, Wembley Stadium. This is what I'm being told. So if that's what they say, they normally back their word. So yeah, let's go with that. Wembley, September the 20th or 21st, 22nd, sometime in there.
Book that week off. If you're thinking of coming to Wembley Stadium,
exactly.
Be in the North London area between those days.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about names in the frame, we spoke a little bit earlier on the Formula E stage. 3 names in the frame.
So what they've got on June the 1st, in Saudi Arabia, they've got the 5 versus 5 card. We've got Filip Hrgović versus Daniel Dubois. You've got Zhang Zhili versus Deontay Wilder. So providing one of those look good, the one who looks the best, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh is saying, I want you to fight, because what he says is that in the future, I want people to look back at your record and say you took on the best. I said, now you're speaking my language. So out of that pool, I believe that's who I'm going to be fighting.
AJ says he'll be back from September 20th to September 25th, somewhere in that time frame. Telling people to take that week off and hang around East London. Seems like he'll be fighting at Wembley, so this is going to be a big event. And he'll be picking his opponent out of who looks best on this June 1st card. We have 2 heavyweight fights on that card, as I previously mentioned, Filip Hrgović versus Daniel Dubois and Zhili Zhang versus Deontay Wilder. He then goes on to mention that Turki Al-Sheikh, His Excellency, has mentioned that he wants to analyse these fights and pick who he thinks is going to be the best opponent for AJ, because he wants people to be able to look back on AJ's legacy and say that he fought the best people. So I think in saying what AJ's already said and with that statement from Turki Al-Sheikh, they obviously want somebody like Deontay Wilder to come out on top and make that the spectacle that it could be. But potentially, It could also be Zhang. It could also be Daniel Dubois. I don't think Filip Hrgović ends up in the equation for this. Like, say we have a situation where Hrgović wins and Zhang wins. I think Zhang gets that fight. And then if Wilder wins, Wilder obviously gets that fight, because that's been something that's been touted to happen for, like, what, nearly 10 years at this point in time? It's been a ridiculous period of time that these guys have been, like, at each other and nearly going to fight, and then everything just falls apart. So it seems like this could be the right time if Wilder gets his act together and can put Zhang down. But anyway, I'll continue with the interview here.
That sounds like a really beautiful relationship you've got there with him.
Yeah,
you're on the same page.
Exactly. We're on the same page, and he's on the same page as the fans as well. Do you know what I'm saying? So he's trying to deliver what the fans want. I know they want that big fight with Tyson Fury, and he's working on it. Fury's got his obligations with Usyk, so I've got to make sure I stay focused and disciplined, make sure I keep on steamrolling through opponents so I can get closer and closer to have an opportunity to fight for the fans and fight for myself, me versus Tyson Fury, and hopefully it'll be in London as well.
Perfect. I understand it was quite close for you and Deontay Wilder to face each other.
Yeah.
If he gets through this next fight,
Let's go.
Could that happen? You'd be up for that?
110%.
Okay.
If it's, I think that if he goes out there and looks good, especially, that will kind of reignite that flame that he had, because boxing is all about perception. You can look bad one fight and go out there the next fight and look good, and everyone says, yeah, he's back. So I pray that he does his thing. I pray that Zhang does his thing. Whichever one looks good and whichever one His Excellency wants, I'm ready.
Do you think that he's got enough to get past Zhang?
Yeah, who? Wilder.
To Wilder,
yeah,
yeah.
Of course. Let me tell you something. The heavyweight division is a division that's so interesting because you just never know who's going to win, you know. And you're at a stage now where there's no like fights that are in, like, let's say, more in your favour than mine. It's quite an even playing field. So on the night, you got to make sure you get your popcorn ready. You're sat down because you just don't know which way the fight's going to go.
So like I mentioned before, it seems like AJ and Turki Al-Sheikh are keen for Wilder to get back to his winning ways so that they can get that fight together before the end of the year. And AJ makes a brilliant point there. It's like a lot of these fights at the top of the heavyweight division are really 50-50 fights if both people are on their game on the night. So hopefully Wilder can put on a good performance against Zhang. I've spoken about this before. I think if Wilder just sort of strays a little bit away from, you know, that boxing style that he's adopted and goes back to just pummeling that right hand straight down the middle, Zhang's there to be hit. So, you know, just really test those waters and see if you can put the big Chinaman out. But if you can't, then that's going to be a scary prospect. And then, like I said, if Zhang comes out on top, Zhang versus Joshua is also a good fight. Dubois versus Joshua is a good fight. Most of these are good fights. Obviously, everybody wants to see AJ versus Wilder, and you can't blame them. But I'll continue with the interview here because he asks a couple of questions about whether AJ would fight Alexander Usyk again, who he thinks is going to win that fight. And AJ gives, you know, some, albeit a little bit bland, but, you know, relatively interesting answers.
Couple of questions about trilogies.
Yeah.
Alexander Usyk.
Let's go.
You up for that? You
100%.
up for ending on a high with that trilogy?
Yeah, but ultimately, it's what the fans want. If the fans want to see it, they'll get it, you know. But for me personally, of course, I'd love to compete with Alexander Usyk, plus many more. But it's really what the fans want, and I don't think that's the number one pick on their wish list.
Well, I was going to say, do the fans want Andy Ruiz Jr.? Because he's been talking this week. We ran it on Talksport. He's saying that he would be well up for a decider almost in that trilogy.
Well, when you look at me, you know I'll take on anyone. And at the same time, there's an element where the promoters want me to fight certain people. And as I said, the fighters that they want me to fight is out of that pool of the 5 versus 5 card on June the 1st. And then after that, they're looking at the Tyson Fury fight. So I would fight Usyk. I would love to. I would fight Andy Ruiz. I would love to. But at the same time, it's what the fans want, and I think they want me to head towards Tyson Fury. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Hey, look, man of the people. Finally, obviously.
I'm a man of myself, first and foremost.
And the people. You say you can be a man of many things.
Nah. I'll fight for myself. I'll fight for myself. Listen, you got to do it for yourself, first and foremost.
I love that. Well, finally, obviously, that is the next big fight coming up, Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury. Just tell me, how's that going to go?
Well, look, I've fought Alexander Usyk, so I can only speak on what I've experienced with him. Phenomenal fighter, does everything to a T, and I would say he's going to do a really good job. I have never fought Tyson Fury, so I can't really speak on how he'll perform or what it's like to face him. So only speaking on what I know, I'd have to say Alexander Usyk will be victorious.
Okay, look, it's been great catching up.
Respect,
we got that date.
September 21st.
That week, yeah?
Yes, that week.
You got to book a week off.
Yes.
If you want to see AJ.
Be in North
this
London.
Autumn. North London. Plenty to do around North London, isn't there?
Plenty to do.
Go and see Watford. You know Watford well?
Yeah, you can see Watford.
There's a shopping centre there, isn't there?
Just check, go online, Wembley Arena, see what's going on around Wembley Arena, Wembley Stadium.
What you're saying is there's clues. There might be clues on the Wembley Arena website.
Check out the websites and you'll see what's happening.
Go and watch some concerts.
Watch
get
some
nice
concerts
food.
in the meantime and get ready for a good night of boxing.
Excellent stuff, AJ. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
God bless.
So yeah, he mentions there that if need be, like if, the time came, he would do a trilogy with Usyk. You would assume that he wants to avenge those losses, as any fighter would do. Andy Ruiz's name was also brought up there. He's fighting on the August 3rd card against Jarrell Miller, so I don't really see how Andy thinks that him beating Jarrell Miller qualifies him to go and then fight AJ. Like AJ said, he's, happy to give that opportunity a look at if that comes up at some point in time. But I think regardless of the way that these next two title fights go, because there's going to be a rematch after the fight on May 18th, he's really looking to get his hands on Tyson Fury, which is good to see that AJ has a little bit of a one-track mind in that sense. He's really looking towards just one guy. He's not focusing on going back for those world titles. He's focusing a little bit on, not revenge per se, but just like shutting Tyson Fury up after so many years. It remains to be seen if Fury would even take those fights if he didn't win the next two fights against Usyk. Honestly, I think he calls it if he doesn't. But if he manages to come out on top on those two fights and then gives Joshua a shot, that's pretty much one of the biggest fights in heavyweight boxing, if not all of boxing, in all time. A fight for all the belts with two dudes that have had so much bad blood from the same country. And that has to be at Wembley. There's no way you cannot... Turki Al-Sheikh, the saviour of boxing, but even he must know that that needs to happen at Wembley Stadium with 80,000 people in their seats, not even in their seats, and then another 10,000 just strapped to the rafters so that they can get in there. So there you have it. There's, what seems to be a most like confirmation of at least when AJ is going to be back. We don't know who he's going to be fighting against. That remains to be seen. We need to have this June 1st card happen, which is going to be an absolute banger. Once again, spoke about that on the podcast the other day, Apple and Spotify. Unanimous decision. And I will speak to you guys soon.